The room is often quiet before destiny speaks. You ask heaven for a sign, yet heaven sometimes answers in silence first, allowing the heart to grow ears before it receives a message. This Sunday may not arrive with thunder, but with a truth that moves gently and changes everything. There are moments when a soul stands at the edge of something unseen, unaware that the next page is already turning. Regret is rarely born from failure, it is more often born from ignoring what was whispered when we still had time to listen. If this message carries weight, it is because it speaks to the hidden places, the fears, delays, and unanswered prayers that sit quietly within. Not every unfolding is dramatic, some are sacred because they happen in secret. And perhaps what unfolds on Sunday is not the world changing around you, but something changing within you first. For the heart that listens may discover that heaven was speaking long before the answer arrived. There are seasons in life when the owl becomes impatient with silence. You pray, you wait, you watch the horizon of your days, and nothing appears to move. Morning arrives as ordinary as the one before it. The burdens remain where you left them. The questions still sit upon the table of the heart unanswered. It is in these moments that many people quietly decide that heaven has become distant. They mistake silence for absence and stillness for abandonment. Yet there is another possibility, one far more mysterious and far more hopeful. What if the silence is not emptiness at all? What if it is preparation? What if the quiet season is not a locked door but a workshop where unseen things are being shaped? The earth itself gives witness to this truth. Seeds do not announce their labor. Beneath the soil where no eye can admire them, roots stretch into darkness before any green blade rises into the light. The world calls it hidden. Heaven may call it necessary. Many souls desire the visible miracle but resist the invisible, forming that comes before it. We ask for the crown while avoiding the wilderness. We long for arrival while resenting the road. Yet the great changes of life often begin in places that seem painfully ordinary. A delayed answer, a closed opportunity, a season where the voice of God feels softer than before. The heart protests against these moments because it loves evidence. It wishes to hold tomorrow in its hands today. Faith, however, walks differently. Faith continues even when the map is incomplete. It believes that the author has not abandoned the story merely because the page has become quiet. There are people listening to this message who have interpreted delay as rejection. You have looked upon your waiting season and called it failure. You have counted the passing days as proof that nothing sacred is taking place. But perhaps the silence is standing between you and a version of yourself that would not survive the blessing if it arrived too early. Some doors open only after. Strength has been built in secret. Some answers come only when the soul has grown large enough to carry them. A gift given before its season can become a burden. A promise received before preparation can become confusion. Think of the moments in your life that changed you most deeply. Many of them were not announced with celebration. They arrived quietly. A realization in solitude. A prayer spoken when no one heard it. A night of wrestling with doubt that somehow left you stronger by morning. The turning point rarely enters with trumpets. It often walks in unnoticed while the heart is occupied with disappointment. It arrives disguised as patience. It hides itself inside endurance. It stands beside you in the ordinary hour and waits for you to recognize that something sacred has already begun. This is why silence must not be feared too quickly. The absence of visible movement does not mean the absence of divine work. The river beneath winter ice still moves though the surface appears still. The stars continue their courses even when clouds hide them. Your present season may feel motionless, but stillness is not the same as inactivity. There are changes that happen beneath the surface of life where human eyes cannot measure them. Character is being refined. Strength is being gathered. Vision is being clarified. And somewhere within this silence, the soul begins to learn a lesson it could never learn in noise. That trust is not built when every answer is visible, but when the heart chooses to believe while standing in the quiet place where nothing yet seems to have changed. And it is precisely there, in that quiet place where nothing yet seems to have changed, that many people become vulnerable to a dangerous misunderstanding. They begin to believe that delay means denial. They look at the closed door and assume it is the end of the road. They watch time pass and conclude that heaven has forgotten their name. Yet there are delays that do not come to stop a person. They come to protect them. The human heart has a curious habit. It often mistakes speed for progress. We want answers quickly because uncertainty feels heavy. We want movement because stillness tests us. We want the next chapter immediately because waiting forces us to sit with ourselves. And there are few things more difficult than remaining in a room with our own thoughts. But what if the thing you called delay was actually mercy wearing plain clothes? Imagine receiving everything the moment you desired it. Every opportunity opened instantly. Every request granted without pause. At first it sounds beautiful. Yet many lives have been damaged not because blessings never arrived, but because they arrived before wisdom had taken root. There are paths that appear golden from a distance and become sorrow when walked too early. There are relationships that seem perfect until time reveals what emotion concealed. There are ambitions that promise fulfillment but quietly ask the soul to trust. Adie its peace for applause. Delay has a strange power. It removes illusion. Time is a patient revealer. What excitement hides, waiting often uncovers. The opportunity that looked flawless begins to show its cracks. The decision that seemed urgent loses its pressure. The voice that sounded convincing is exposed as temporary. Many people have thanked God for prayers that were answered. Fewer have thanked Him for prayers that were delayed. Yet some of the greatest mercies arrived disguised as unanswered requests. You may have stood before a closed door and wept because it would not open. Months later, perhaps years later, you looked back and realized that what felt like rejection was rescue. The road you desperately wanted might have led into exhaustion. The invitation you mourned may have carried hidden grief. The thing withheld from you was not punishment but preservation. This is the warning hidden inside delay. Do not run ahead simply because waiting feels uncomfortable. Impatient has caused many people to abandon what was being prepared for them. They stepped into temporary answers because eternal timing felt too slow. They accepted lesser things because silence frightened them. They chose movement over wisdom and called it courage. But true courage is sometimes the opposite. It is remaining still when every emotion demands motion. It is refusing to force a door open simply because your hands are tired of knocking. It is believing that not every closed path is an enemy. There is a sacred difference between being delayed and being lost. A traveler may pause at the edge of a storm, not because the journey is finished, but because continuing would bring danger. The pause becomes protection. The waiting becomes guidance. Perhaps this season in your life carries that same mystery. Perhaps what feels late is actually precise. Perhaps the answer has not arrived because something unseen still needs to shift. A lesson still needs to settle into your spirit. A end danger still needs to pass. A stronger version of you is still being formed. The world teaches urgency. Heaven often teaches timing. One says, take it now before it disappears. The other whispers, trust, because what belongs to you does not need to be stolen from the future. And so the delay remains for a little while longer, not as a punishment, not as abandonment, but as a quiet guardian standing before a door you are not yet meant to enter, while somewhere beyond your sight, pieces are being moved, paths are being cleared, and preparations continue in places your eyes have never reached as the coming Sunday moves closer with its own hidden purpose and its own unfolding message, still waiting in silence for the moment it is meant to appear. And as that unseen preparation continues, the heart slowly begins to understand that certain days carry more than hours within them. They arrive with a quiet symbolism, as though time itself pauses and asks the soul to pay attention. Sunday has often been seen as such a day not because the calendar possesses power, but because renewal has always needed a moment to announce itself. There are mornings that feel ordinary, and then there are mornings that seem to carry a hidden invitation. The light enters the room the same way. The clock moves at its usual pace. The world outside continues its noise. Yet something within feels different, as though the spirit has stepped into a doorway the mind cannot fully explain. People often imagine renewal as something dramatic. They expect thunder, sudden victories, immediate answers, unmistakable signs. But renewal rarely introduces itself with spectacle. More often it arrives quietly, almost humbly. It comes like the first light touching the edge of a dark horizon. The night has not vanished in an instant, yet the promise of morning can already be seen. This is why Sunday becomes more than a day in the story. It becomes a symbol, a reminder that endings are not always final and so on. Lent is not always empty. It speaks of beginnings that emerge from places once covered in uncertainty. Some who hear this message have lived for a long time beneath the weight of disappointment. You have carried unanswered prayers like stones in your hands. You have walked through seasons where hope seemed smaller each month. At times you even wondered whether expecting anything good had become foolish. Yet renewal has a strange habit. It often visits those who stopped looking toward the horizon because they had grown tired of waiting. The soul becomes weary after enough delays. It learns caution. It protects itself from hope because hope feels dangerous after repeated disappointment. The heart whispers, "Do not expect too much. Do not believe too deeply. Stay small, and you will not be hurt again." But renewal speaks differently. It says that the story is not finished simply because the chapter became difficult. It reminds the weary soul that winter does not argue with spring. It eventually gives way to it. The barren field may appear forgotten, yet beneath the surface life quietly prepares its return. What if this coming Sunday represents such a moment? Not a magical event, not an instant solution to every burden, but a turning of the inner world. A day where perspective shifts. A morning where the heart hears again what fear tried to silence. Perhaps renewal begins when you choose to believe once more. Perhaps restoration starts the moment you stop calling yourself abandoned. Perhaps awakening arrives not through external change but through an inner realization that heaven has still been writing even while you thought the pages were blank. There are times when people ask for a new life while holding tightly to old despair. They pray for light while protecting the shadows that have become familiar. Renewal asks for something difficult, the courage to release yesterday's conclusions. The pain was real, the waiting was real, the tears were real, but that, hey, are not the whole story. Sunday stands here in this message like a quiet messenger, not demanding attention, only offering possibility. It whispers that beginnings often come dressed in simplicity, that restoration may already be approaching in unseen ways, that what looked lifeless may still contain hidden promise. And maybe the unfolding you fear missing is not an event outside you at all. Maybe it is the awakening of faith after a long season of doubt. Maybe it is the return of hope to a room where disappointment once ruled. Maybe it is the moment when your spirit finally realizes that renewal was walking toward you while you were still looking back at what was lost. And in that sacred tension, another battle quietly begins, one not fought with hands or circumstances, but within the hidden chambers of the heart where fear and faith now prepare to meet, and there, within those hidden chambers of the heart, the true conflict begins. It is not always the battle people expect. Ma'am. NY imagine their greatest enemy to be poverty, opposition, rejection, failure, or the harsh conditions surrounding them. Yet some of the fiercest wars are fought in silence where no audience exists and no applause is heard. The struggle between fear and faith is often invisible. Fear does not always arrive loudly. It rarely announces itself as an enemy. Sometimes it comes dressed as wisdom. Sometimes it calls itself realism. It sits beside the soul and whispers, "Protect yourself. Expect less. Do not hope too much. Nothing changes for people like you." And because the voice sounds calm, many mistake it for truth. Faith speaks differently. It does not deny difficulty. It does not pretend storms are gentle or wounds are imaginary. Faith simply refuses to believe that darkness is the final authority. Yet when a person has waited long enough, fear gains confidence. It points toward every disappointment and says, "Look at the evidence." It gathers old failures like witnesses. It opened the records of forgotten dreams. It returns to the moments that hurt most and repeats them until the heart begins to believe that tomorrow must resemble yesterday. This is how fear builds its throne, not through force, through repetition. A soul can survive many hardships, but repeated disappointment has a peculiar power. It tempts people to lower their expectations until they no longer need courage. They stop asking boldly. They stop believing deeply. They keep hope locked away as though hope itself were dangerous. Fear prefers small rooms. It wants the spirit to live beneath low ceilings where nothing unexpected can happen. It says safety is found in surrendering possibility. But faith keeps opening windows. Faith stands in the same room, sees the same walls, hears the same storms, and still dares to say, "There is more beyond this." This is why the battle matters, because whichever voice is fed becomes stronger. If fear is given every memory, every wound, every unfinished prayer, it will weave them into chains. It will convince the soul that delay means defeat and silence means abandonment. But faith takes those same pieces and reads them differently. It says the delay may still contain purpose. It says the silence may still contain preparation. It says the unfinished chapter is not permission to declare the story over. There are listeners carrying battles no one knows about. Outwardly, life continues. Conversations happen. Responsibilities are met. Smiles appear when needed. Yet inwardly there is a quiet exhaustion. The soul has become tired of fighting invisible wars. Perhaps you know this feeling. You wake each day and continue moving, but part of you wonders whether expecting change is worth the risk anymore. You have stood at the edge of hope so many times that disappointment feels familiar and faith feels expensive. But understand this carefully. Fear does not need to destroy hope entirely. It only needs to convince you to abandon it. A self, that is its subtle work. Not chains upon the hands, but hesitation within the spirit. Not locked doors, but a heart that stops knocking. Not darkness everywhere, but enough shadows to make you question the light. And still faith remains. Not always as fire. Sometimes as a single ember refusing to die. Sometimes as one quiet prayer spoken after 1,000 silent nights. Sometimes as the decision to stand again when every emotion argues for surrender. The battle between fear and faith is not won in one moment. It is fought daily in thoughts, in choices, in the stories we tell ourselves when no one else is listening. And perhaps this Sunday approaches not merely as a date upon the calendar, but as a crossing point where the soul must decide which voice will guide the next chapter. Because beyond this inner struggle, something else has already begun to move in secret places where human eyes have seen nothing, yet unseen hands continue their work without announcement or apology. Applause, and while that inner battle continues, another mystery unfolds beyond sight. The world teaches us to trust what can be measured. We believe what we can touch, count, and place before our eyes. If movement cannot be seen, we often assume nothing is happening. Yet some of the greatest works in life begin in hidden places where no witness stands. There are seasons when everything appears still. The prayers remain unanswered. The opportunities remain closed. The same routines repeat themselves until the days feel almost identical. It is easy in such moments to believe that heaven has stepped away from the scene. But unseen movement has always been one of the great secrets of transformation. The river beneath the earth continues its journey, though no traveler sees it. Roots deepen long before branches reach upward. The dawn begins its work while the world still sleeps beneath the darkness. Hidden things are not always absent things. Perhaps what troubles the human heart most is not suffering itself, but invisibility. We can endure hardship more easily when we see progress. We can carry burdens when evidence appears beside them. But when effort seems unanswered and waiting stretches beyond expectation, doubt begins to speak. It asks dangerous questions. Has anything changed? Was the prayer heard? Did the promise matter at all? And because silence offers no immediate reply, the soul becomes tempted to answer for heaven. It says, nothing is moving. Yet how quickly we forget that some preparations refuse to reveal themselves until their appointed hour. Think of the builder who lays foundations beneath the ground. Those who pass by see only dirt and emptiness. They do not applaud because nothing impressive stands above the surface. But the hidden work determines whether the visible structure can endure. So it is with many seasons of life. There are unseen foundations being formed. Character where pride once lived. Patience where urgency ruled. Strength where weakness seemed permanent. Wisdom where confusion once sat. These things grow quietly. No trumpet announces them. No crowd gathers to celebrate them. Still they rise. Many people pray for visible miracles while missing the invisible ones already taking place within them. They ask for open doors while becoming the kind of person capable of walking through those doors with humility and endurance. The hidden movement is often preparing both the blessing and the one who will receive it. This is why appearances can be deceiving. A life may seem unchanged from the outside while entire worlds shift beneath the surface. The person who once lived in fear begins learning trust. The heart that carried bitterness starts softening. The spirit that nearly surrendered finds the strength to stand again. None of these changes make headlines, yet they alter destinies. There are moments when God works in ways so quiet that only time reveals them. Looking backward, people suddenly, why notice what they could not see while living through it? They realize the delay protected them. The silence strengthened them. The closed path redirected them. The waiting transformed them. What appeared empty had been active all along, and perhaps that is where you stand now, not in abandonment, not in failure, but in a chapter hidden from your own understanding. The pieces may look scattered, the answers may seem distant, the horizon may remain unclear. Still, movement can exist where vision ends. The unseen work does not ask for applause, it does not hurry to defend itself. It continues patiently while the soul wrestles with uncertainty. Some doors are already being aligned. Some conversations not yet spoken are quietly approaching. Some changes have begun long before their arrival becomes visible. And somewhere inside this hidden labor lies another truth waiting to emerge, the realization that many people do not miss their turning point because it never came, but because they overlooked the gentle warnings, the small convictions, and the quiet promptings that tried to guide them before the unfolding ever reached their eyes. And it is here that the story becomes more solemn, because not every loss comes through opposition. Not every regret is born from failure. Some regrets arrive softly, carrying the painful knowledge that a voice once spoke, a warning once appeared, a gentle prompting once visited the heart, and it was ignored. Life rarely changes all at once, neither does misdirection. People imagine that great mistakes begin with dramatic choices, but many begin with small dismissals. A quiet conviction pushed aside, a moment of hesitation silenced, a truth recognized for an instant and then buried beneath convenience. The soul often knows before the mind agrees. There are times when something within whispers, "Do not go this way." No thunder follows, no visible sign appears, only a gentle unease, a pause, a weight that words struggle to explain. Yet because the message seems small, people overlook it. We live in a world that celebrates loud voices. Urgency is praised, speed is admired, immediate action is mistaken for strength. In such a world, the quiet promptings of the spirit can seem almost insignificant. But some of the most important directions in life arrive as whispers. The tragedy is not that heaven never speaks. The tragedy is that noise often speaks louder. Fear speaks. Pride speaks. Impatience speaks. Wounds from yesterday speak. And amid all these voices, the soul must learn the difficult art of listening. Many regrets are not born in moments of rebellion. They are born in moments of neglect. A person senses they should wait, yet they rush. They feel they should release something, yet they hold tighter. They know a path is wrong, yet they continue because turning back feels embarrassing. At first, nothing seems lost. The consequences do not arrive immediately. Life moves forward. The choice appears harmless, but time has a way of revealing what haste concealed. And then comes that heavy sentence the heart fears most. I knew something was not right. I knew I should have paused. I knew the warning was there. Few burdens weigh more than ignored wisdom remembered too late. This is why the small convictions matter. Not because they are dramatic, because they are often protective. The quiet discomfort before a wrong decision, the unexplained hesitation before an unhealthy attachment, the persistent thought that returns even after being dismissed. These moments may seem ordinary, yet they sometimes carry extraordinary purpose. There are listeners who have spent years regretting one decision, one path, one moment where they walked against what they felt deep within. You replay it, you revisit it, you wonder how life might have unfolded differently. But even here there is something sacred to understand. Regret can become a prison, or it can become a teacher. If it only accuses, it hardens the spirit. If it instructs, it sharpens discernment. The purpose of remembering is not endless punishment. It is awakening. It is learning to listen again. Because the voice you ignored once may still be speaking. The invitation you overlooked may still remain. The guidance you dismissed may return with gentleness rather than condemnation. Heaven does not always shout after being ignored. Sometimes it waits, patiently, quietly, allowing the soul another chance to notice what was missed. And perhaps this message itself stands in that place, not as a threat, not as fear, but as a lantern held beside the road, a reminder to pay attention, to notice the small movements, to honor the quiet convictions, to stop dismissing what keeps returning to your spirit. For the unfolding approaching this Sunday may not arrive as spectacle. It may appear as a realization, a prompting, a decision, a moment where the heart suddenly recognizes that guidance had been walking beside it all along. And once that recognition arrives, only one question remains. What will you do with it? Because every message, every warning, every whisper eventually becomes an invitation, and the final step is not merely hearing it, but choosing whether you will rise and walk toward what has been waiting for you all this time. And so we arrive at the final invitation, not the end of the journey, but the place where hearing must become movement. Messages can inspire, warnings can awaken, silence can teach. But there comes a moment when the soul must decide whether it will remain standing at the doorway or step through it. Many people live near change but never enter it. They stand close enough to see possibility, yet fear keeps their hands at their sides. They wait for certainty before taking action. They ask for guarantees before offering trust. They want the entire road illuminated before taking the first step, yet life rarely unfolds that T-way. The lamp often reveals only enough light for the next part of the path. Faith has always asked for movement before complete understanding. Not reckless movement, not blind ambition, but the quiet courage to respond. There are seasons when the invitation is obvious. A new opportunity appears. A door opens. A clear answer arrives. Those moments feel easier because evidence walks beside them. But there are other seasons where the invitation is hidden. It looks like forgiveness when pride wants distance. It looks like patience when urgency demands speed. It looks like beginning again after disappointment has already written its conclusion. These invitations ask more from the heart because they require surrender, and surrender is difficult. The human spirit likes control. It wants to hold tomorrow in its hands. It wishes to arrange every outcome before taking action. Yet some chapters cannot be controlled, they can only be entered. Perhaps this is where you stand now, not at the end of waiting, not at the end of questions, but at the edge of response. Everything that has unfolded in this message, the silence, the delay, the renewal, the battle, the hidden movement, the warnings has been leading here, to this moment, to this decision. Will you keep living as though nothing is changing? Will you continue speaking the language of defeat because it has become familiar? Will you remain in rooms that your spirit has already outgrown? Or will you rise, not because fear has disappeared, not because every answer has arrived, but because something within you has awakened? There is a difference between being ready and being willing. Many wait to feel ready. Few choose willingness. Readiness depends on circumstances. Willingness belongs to the heart. The path ahead may still contain uncertainty. The unfolding you expect may not arrive in the shape you imagined. The Sunday you watch for may pass more quietly than anticipated. Yet quiet moments often carry eternal weight. A decision made in silence, a prayer spoken with sincerity, a burden finally released, a step taken despite trembling. These things change lives. Do not underestimate small obedience. Entire futures have turned because someone listened to one gentle prompting and acted upon it. Entire stories have shifted because a weary soul chose hope one more time. Entire seasons have changed because a person refused to let disappointment write the final sentence. So if this message has walked beside you through the shadows, through the waiting, through the hidden places where fear once spoke louder than faith, then hear this final invitation. Pay attention, stay awake within your spirit. Do not rush ahead, but do not remain asleep. Watch the quiet places. Honor the convictions that return. Protect the hope that survived. And when the moment arrives, whether through a whisper, a realization, an unexpected opening, or a truth that settles gently upon your heart, do not turn away from it. Step forward. Carry what you have learned. Walk with humility. Move with trust. For what unfolds next may not simply change your circumstances. It may change the person walking through them. And somewhere beyond this moment, beyond the waiting and the wondering, beyond the silence that once felt endless, the next page already rests in unseen hands, waiting for the soul that is finally willing to move toward it without demanding to know every word written upon it.